Loading snacks.
What it do, snackers, snackettes, and snack X's? It's your boy Gage. I'm here with jokes, and it's time for another episode of Spoiler Boys.
Spoiler boys.
Max. And we are here to spoil episode 6 of Agatha All Along. Jokes.
Yes, sir.
They trying to do it.
They trying to do it.
They're trying to do it. Um, look, coming out of the last discussion we had about episode 5, we really um we felt like, yeah, they're doing something. I had my complaints about 4. We talked about that last episode 4. We talked about that last time. Felt really good coming out of episode 5. And we talked about it. It was like, all right, this feels like the perfect time for a flashback. Called it.
Boom.
And sure enough, you know what I mean? Straight up flashback. So, this episode digs like
All the
incredibly
way.
deep into how Teen is in fact Billy Maximo and how it happened. Um Jokes, what are your impressions of this episode?
Um, this episode was amazing. Getting the backstory and weaving threads as we're getting this backstory. I'm like,
Hmm?
I had to sit up a couple times. Like, I'm kind of chill out. Something happens. I'm just like, and it was probably like 4 of these through
For
the
for
episode.
for a little quick sit-ups. You gotta remember, bruh, the audio listeners can't see you sit forward like that. They
You're
don't
right. You're
know,
right.
bruh. You gotta.
You're right. These little extra little sit-ups as each time something is happening there for it. But I love the information that we were given through this episode to build the past and build the backstory and to explain and make how Billy works within the MCU. I think
100%.
is so I thoroughly enjoyed that. And it's like with a lot of the Disney Plus shows, there's always typically at least one of these episodes where we kind of slow things down. It's like, listen, we gave y'all action, we gave you this, but this one, we gotta take the step back and we gotta give you this info to fill some holes, but still keep you guessing as you're going through. And this was that episode.
Yeah, I mean, you know, walking from episode 1 into this episode, there's a lot of make it make sense. There's like an overarching need for them to make it make sense, right? Like, why are we doing this? How come, how is this person, right? And
Mhm.
there's a lot up in the air about everything dealing with Wanda,
Mhm.
Scarlet Witch, um, and the reality or lack thereof
Mhm.
of what she created or caused, what's real and what's not, what you can believe and what you don't. It's like, the entire town was under this spell. Um, and it's a little strange because, especially watching this episode, um you're hearing about how the sword, which is cool that they mentioned sword, like,
Mhm.
has put a spin on what happened in the town, right? I heard that was an Avengers training exercise gone wrong or something like that, right? And
Mhm.
um, I'd be very interested to hear exactly what the spin is on that, because you have these people that live in this town who, for all intents and purposes, know exactly what happened, but the greater public doesn't seem to be aware.
Where?
Um, even though it's I guess like, it's weird. It seems like people know that Wanda's dead.
Yeah, it seems like it's a known thing from either obviously from the events of at this point, I guess Doctor Strange, because clearly she goes kind of on a rampage, but at least from the events, yeah, it's weird how they really think she's dead.
Well, yeah, because I mean, even the way it technically ended in Doctor Strange, it was like, well, we don't know if she's really dead.
Right.
Like who was there to report that the Scarlet Witch is dead? Like, who mourned her death? If in fact that's what happened, where were the rest of the Avengers to kind of show up and pay their respects or whatever? So it's interesting. That's probably the one thing that feels like a remaining plot hole for me as a whole, as they really start to kind of connect all the dots. But this episode goes back in time 3 years to William Kaplan's bar mitzvah, and so he's 13. He tells us in the first episode, or second episode, that he's 16. This is 3 years ago. And he just so happens to be having his bar mitzvah in Eastview on the same night that they're resolving what happened in Westview. And it's really interesting that they show him as a kid who's like interested in magic. He's having this like magic themed bar mitzvah with like Houdini and all that kind of stuff. So as the night goes on and we see him having a good time with his friends, and you see who his true blood family, his blood mother and father are, and they happen to have this palm reader set up.
That was number one. That was like wait, what?
But you got to remember, dog. The audio listeners can't see what you're doing, bro.
I said it.
That was sit up number one.
That was sit up number one.
No, you just said that was number one. You didn't say what number one. You just said that was number one. It was
sit up number one.
I mean, I'm just saying, you just gotta let them know, man. They can't see what I see. Why did that make you sit up though?
Because it was like, so first of all, obviously, it didn't seem like when they all first got together and met, they clearly didn't know each other, is what it seemed like. And so seeing her there and them having that first interaction, I was just like, okay, so you guys have actually crossed paths at one point. Now, obviously, she's doing her thing, getting paid to be there to do that. So sure, maybe you forgot him because it was 3 years ago, and maybe you don't necessarily remember him.
Well, no. She doesn't. She can't remember him because all right. So when he goes in, sits down, does the palm reading. She looks at his palm, gets kind of scared, right, and sees two separate lifelines that are separate from one another, right? And at that moment, it feels like she either immediately is aware of the witchcraft portions of it and gets the premonition of needing to protect him in some way, and doesn't want to tell him. Like, you can see the look on her face makes it feel like she knows he's gonna die like tonight. Like, your lifeline is this one's
kind of short in comparison to this other one on here, right?
Yeah. But then we find out that she's the witch that put the hex that put the spell on him, right? That kept him from being able to say his name, right? But and remembering what happened. But if you remember, when they first realized that he had that on him and he couldn't talk, remember, she didn't know. Like, when she sees it, she's like, oh,
right,
somebody, right? And they said that it affects not only the person they do it to, but the witch who cast it. So they can't remember either, which is why when after she does it and he leaves, she has that thing where she kind of looks like okay,
you know what? Okay, that just hit me a little bit differently now because when he Teen left his jacket in her little booth. And
Right.
when she passed the jacket, she was like, "Yeah, one of the kids left it." And at first, I
Hmm.
was just thinking that she wasn't trying to say it, but now that you just said that,
She really
that
couldn't.
just
She
clicked.
said they asked who it was, and she was like, "I don't remember." She really can't remember because she's the one who put the sigil or whatever on him, and that made it so that she forgot him. So yeah, when she sees him again, she doesn't know who he is. She doesn't remember him, and it's her own fault. You know what I'm saying? So it's kind of that's what it is. Like they actually, again, you know how I am about like little loopholes and that kind of stuff, and like she sealed that up. So yeah, she doesn't know who he is, and for them to kind of make sure that there's a tie that's there, right?
Hmm.
The other thing is he does die that night, right? That day, and the person who she meets when they do meet when he's with Agatha is not the same person who sat in that room with her, right?
100%.
It is in fact Billy Maximoff inside of the once deceased body of William Kaplan. And so no, he doesn't recognize her because he's never met her, has never seen her before, right? So again, they kind of tighten that up, and I love that. I love that they do that. And the fact that his right after that happens, his bar mitzvah is interrupted, with them coming in and saying, "Hey,
You got to get everyone
everybody
out.
has to
Stuff going.
evacuate. There's something going on with that weird thing, in Westview. Everybody got to go." And they get in the car and they're driving home, and it's not like they're racing home or whatever.
Hmm.
Mom is driving, but they're distracted, and she's looking at what's going on with the big red bubble that's over top of Westview, and
Not paying attention.
she swerves into the wrong side of the road, and my man, they hit that tree real hard.
Oh, oh, that
Bro, they hit that tree real hard.
I wasn't expecting
And
like I wasn't actually expecting like us to get that full on actual impact, but they made sure that they made that emphasis on that impact with that car.
very much he didn't make it. He didn't make it. And then when they pan to him, you see him basically die, and then kind of hear Wanda in the background and Billy and Tommy in the background. And the next thing you know, he's waking up and he's confused about where he is and
Hmm.
what's going on. And so him waking up with amnesia, I think it's a really good analog for something like that happening, right? That the people around him are confused, that he's cognizant, he can
Hmm.
speak, right? Not sure of who he is, right? And like calling somebody William or Billy is the same kind of thing. Like you wouldn't even necessarily not respond to somebody who says your name. Um, and I like them going through the drama and the trauma of what has happened to him, how his parents are reacting to it,
Hmm.
his time in the hospital, um, and him kind of slowly coming to the realization that he managed to get himself into a new body, but still is retaining his powers because he can hear his parents
Hmm.
speaking. Um, and as their thoughts kind of go back and forth, he feels like, wait, stop fighting, and
Stop
says it
fighting.
out loud. And they're like, what are you talking about?
We're not
We're
fighting.
not fighting. So they're giving you kind of again that insight into what his power set was, which they did already show in WandaVision. Um, and kind of again taking the baby steps of going through like what's happened to him and kind of like what his recovery is like and how he kind of starts to get back to where he is and him coming home not being recognized by his own dog,
Hmm. Hey,
right?
listen, that dog was on point. Dog was on point. He like, "Hey, wait, you. something
You
you don't
smell
smell right.
different.
You don't smell
Yeah.
right.
Who is this? Um, yeah, it's I just think it's handled really well. I think it's done so well. And look, I guess if you it's super subtle. And if you're watching I don't know why you would watch this if you hadn't already watched WandaVision. So it's hard for me to assume that anybody who's got eyes on this is watching it without having some of the backstory, like having visually seen it. Because I do still feel like if you haven't seen WandaVision, you're still like pretty
Yeah,
confused about like what happened or what's going on. So this is something that is done for the people who have,
already consumed that.
yeah, who have seen it and are familiar. Um, so that transition, it's like we kind of know that Billy is aware of magic and how it works
Hmm.
and being telepathic and a lot of that kind of stuff. Um, and then we kind of fast forward after him kind of getting like figuring things out and you getting a chance to like see him looking at himself in the mirror and like really realizing like I don't look like me. Like
Hmm.
I guess this is who I am and I'm gonna have to figure out how to make this work, right? Um, and then we fast forward, right? A few more years. Um, as we make the transition into the next couple of years, how do you feel about the way they handled like who William Kaplan was and like what his room looked like in terms of being 13 versus who Billy is now in this body and what
And
that
then
room looks like at 16?
I think they did an amazing job. It's like it's clearly. I mean, I say like it's like night and day. Like seeing what was there, and then even outer appearance after we go through the couple of years, you see how the appearance change. Kind of like the eyeliner, mascara kind of thing. Having the nails. Like you've clearly seen that evolution of being like, this is not William anymore. This is Billy, still trying to come to terms with the fact that it's like
Hmm.
I'm Billy, but at the same time, it's like I'm not quite the exact same as what I was before. But at least
Yeah.
being able to get into his own and still
Hmm.
being able to kind of adapt and become a part of, becoming a part of the family because clearly seems like the family has a good relationship. Like
Yeah.
there's not like a disconnect because you would think with something that happened, maybe in the early stages there was probably obviously some weirdness that, I'm still trying to get a feel for mom and dad that I'm not really familiar with. I can only
Hmm.
imagine if, like, say, obviously after recuperating, if school was in, if having to go to school and probably have friends or whoever come up and say, what's up, William? Like, hey,
Call
but
me Billy. Yeah.
call me Billy now.
Call me Billy.
But I think definitely being able to see those major and still some subtle differences is definitely a key, and it's done very well.
Yeah. We transition to him being older and can see the clear emo vibes, um, horror movie posters and
Hmm.
all that kind of stuff, the darker room, but much more like magic leaning,
Hmm.
kind of stuff. Um, and doing the research, like really trying to figure out what's going on with him, what happened to him,
Hmm.
having a sigil, looking at it, trying to understand like what does this symbol mean, how does it work, um, and as he's doing that research and trying to figure out how what happened to him is tied to what happened in Westview, um, kind of digging into the cover up and then trying to find like people who will talk about it or people who know about it. and decides to tell his boyfriend Teddy,
Mm-hmm.
you know, I met somebody. I gotta tell you something, right? They
Uh-huh.
have their little moment in the car, which I think was handled well. He hears his thoughts. He wants to tell him he loves him. All right, cool. Hold on. I gotta tell you something. Let me kind of like how he snuck in saying it first,
I love you
which
too.
is kind of cheating. You know what I mean? Like, but um, but wanting to having that moment, finding out in a natural way how strongly this person feels about him, and that immediately making him comfortable enough
Mm-hmm.
to start sharing
Cohen is
some of
pretty
his
much this.
reality. Yeah. Um, being able to say, like, look, I died that night.
Right.
And yeah,
And like, I'm not being. This is not a metaphor. Like,
yeah,
I died that night.
I died that day, that night, whatever, right? Um, and kind of sitting and going through it and having somebody there who's like, all right, I got you.
Got you.
I'm not gonna, not gonna make fun of you. I know you've been through some things, stuff with your parents, whatever. Let me hear you out. Let me see. I'm gonna help you. Like, I'm so ready to help you. I'm about to take the jacket off and go. And my man said,
Whoa, whoa.
hold on now. You
Put
gotta put the
those,
guns
put
away.
those away.
Gotta put the guns away. No distraction. You know what I'm saying? Um, well, I thought the start was cute. It was a cute little nod.
Yeah.
I dug that. Um, I said, look, I met this dude who says he knows and he's willing to talk, and I'm gonna go meet him. You know what I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying? And Slim is like, hey, dog, hold tight. That's this that catfish. Like, I can't. Hey, you trying to get murdered? My man is saying all of the brown people things. Let me just make that very clear. My man is like, yo, why
Lights,
we meet in the
like,
dark? Why, you know what I'm saying? Why we in this creepy garage? Why my man can't just say, like, all of the right questions? All the things I'm thinking. Hey, dog, why y'all doing this and this? And then surprise, surprise jokes. Surprise, surprise jokes. The homie Ralph Boner.
that's like number. I know we caught it. We missed a couple. That was like number 4. I was like, oh, I was like,
Let me tell you something, jokes. You know as well as I do that they cut out the part where they revealed that Ralph Boner was witness
no
protection.
protection. Yep.
But then to bring my man back, it's almost like a slap in the face, dog. You just be flaunting this around, dog. My man got all this backstory to tell, and you not gonna say you was in witness protection. Witness protection from what, dog? What did Ralph Boner see, Slam? Like, yo, I'm sitting in this joint and I'm like, dog, they got to tell me. They got to say. He got to go all the way back. Forget just what happened in Westview. He's telling this whole story
Bro,
about how Agatha took his life over and stole his house and whatever, how he kept what's her name hostage in the attic and
addict.
explaining it like, it's like you're watching your own TV show. You stuck, you don't really have any control. And that Agatha was also a part of that. It wasn't just what
Hmm.
Wanda did, but really they're not talking about Agatha, right? He's like, my man say Wanda, and my man like, whoa,
Whoa,
hold on.
whoa.
Finally brings up Agatha and talks about what happened with that.
Oh, that was funny.
And again, I'm like, tell me what crime you witnessed that got you on the FBI
Dog, because whatever
witness
he saw,
protection program.
I just want to,
Who
because at this point, that's probably going to be tied. That should tie into the greater MCU. Whatever you witnessed that was that bad, but we'll never
Hey
get.
dog, there was a time when like MCU was. I get this is like some sidebar, bro, but like, cause it'd be bothering me, dog. There was a time when MCU was so on it, bro, that they would have took a story like this and that joint would have been a one shot. Like they would have shot like a 20-30 minute joint, side joint, just for my man in his own little thing and put it out there. And dog, like I'm telling you, like Kevin Feige, I know you listening. I know you listening. I know you hear these things out in the ethos. We need a one shot. Just tell me what my man saw, bro. He out here acting. What kind of witness protection program could you possibly be in, right? Slim had headshots in his house when they found
Mm-hmm.
him. You know what I'm saying? In his, and like he talking about, yo, I'll take payment. You can pay me this way, or you could pay half price
I
for a
need
ticket
half.
to come see my show.
I need to put people in seats.
My man out here acting, bro. Who are you hiding? How are you hiding by being in front of it? Like it doesn't. I need a story. Anyway, he's the one who feeds the information about Agatha,
Mm-hmm.
which I'm not sure. There's a part of me that feels like some of what Billy should know, he
Mm-hmm.
may be lost in transition.
Right.
I feel like when Agatha's name comes up, I mean, I guess they called her Agnes, so maybe he wouldn't know her as Agatha, but I feel like he should know
But
Agatha
those
and know
two.
her name, um, so that when Ralph says it, it shouldn't be so strange to him. Like I feel like because there was some sort of a connection there, that like hearing the name or seeing her for the first time, he's gonna be like, "Oh,
Mm-hmm.
I remember you." It's a little bit of a loose end for me, but getting that information and then really going back and being like, I gotta go figure this out, and then like just googling her,
Doing the research,
fake
like,
Google, putting her name in, and getting like nothing, like, and then finally finding something on like Bruhapedia, which I thought was dope, and then kind of getting this list of like, this alphabetical list of these witches or supposed witches or Brujas, if you will, and finding her name and digging in and getting that information and learning about the richest road as he's listening to the
as he's
to
listening
the
to the jump,
to the
I was like,
final, right?
oh, it's just like all these pieces, like that teen has pretty much Billy has already like he's pretty much interacted with everyone, almost everyone, in some shape or form. Like obviously, even if it wasn't necessarily directly, getting his palm read, Alice being the police officer that ended up coming to the car after the accident. When he
Hmm.
was in his room on the computer, Jennifer was doing the commercial for her beauty line
The
on there
YouTube,
for
she was on, yeah.
on YouTube, and that was just a subtle getting into it, and we'll get to a couple others as we go through.
But
But
the thing that's cool about that, now the Alice thing, I'm a little thrown off by. I'd have to go back and watch it again to see whether or not she saw him. And I know
mhm,
he'd be hurt and bloody, and maybe it's kind of brief or whatever. So I could see how maybe like just a one off in like the fake hot topic, she
yeah,
wouldn't maybe necessarily recognize him. Um, and certainly could understand that he wouldn't recognize her.
hmm
But um, him knowing that Jennifer is who she is, like he's seen her on YouTube before and is aware of her and already has her Instagram when they go in there to talk to her, and she turns Agatha away, and then he's like, oh man, your Instagram looking like you might be in some trouble.
some
You might need to hit us
trouble.
up on this road. Um, so it does like explain like why he had that information so like readily available and like kind of
hmm
knew who she was already. Um, which again I thought was cool. And again, you're right, like the way that these it's been intertwined, that this coven was his coven, maybe whole time. Um, you know, one of the original names for this show was Agatha Coven of Chaos.
Yeah,
And it's starting to make me feel like maybe they changed that name because like they're going to that it like maybe wasn't really ever
I
her
guess
coven,
right.
that it was his coven. And
I
I'm
kind
gonna
of
tell
want to.
you why I think that's what the case is.
I believe it. I kind of want to go through all those titles again because I feel like maybe they felt as though they were either giving something too like away with each of those
Oh,
titles now.
Yeah.
Reason why we had to change like at least like 4 or 5 times probably. So
Mhm.
kind of want to revisit those later on.
Yeah. Here's what I think is probably the most interesting thing about this episode. There's a lot of things, and there's a lot. They do a lot of stuff to tie a lot of things together, man. And this is the kind of stuff that I love. Like this is where it starts to get like good for me, right? So my man decides he's trying to figure out, okay, how do I break the spell? In order for me to do it, I need a personal item.
Mm-hmm.
So my man's like, all right, guess I'm going to Westview. I don't really have no choice, right? Like he comes home, he doesn't have Teddy with him. Um, his mother and father like, what? No, Teddy's not with you. Like,
Mm-hmm.
um, they offer, hey, let's sit down, let's watch a movie. And he's like, nah, I got homework. My man really got to go do some work though.
Mm-hmm.
Um, another sidebar. Um, so like the way that this happens, the way that this unfolds, like Billy being transferred into the body of William Kaplan, it's very different from how it happens in the comics. And I, I I'm not positive, but I think that maybe I don't know if Teddy is going to end up. I don't think Teddy's going to end up being somebody because in the comics, there's like Billy has a boyfriend named
Mm-hmm.
Eddie, not Teddy. It's Eddie, but Eddie becomes Hulkling, and we already have
Have
a Hulkling. So you know what I'm saying? Sort of like. So I don't know how they're going to unfold that, or if
mm-hmm.
Teddy is going to become someone or something like down the road, but it's certainly possible. I just kind of want to throw that out there because the name changes and stuff like that, but it's just kind of an interesting parallel.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Nonetheless, I bring him up because he realizes he needs to get a personal piece of clothing. Decides to go to her house. So now we're at this place where we know why he was breaking into her house,
Yep. Mm-hmm.
right? And we get to see what it was like for him dealing with Agatha versus what it looked like in her head.
With
And we talked about
Agatha.
this, like wondering, like, are we ever going to see what it really looks like for other people who aren't inside of the same
Yep.
spell? And man, we get that, and it's really good. But there's a very specific thing that happens, jokes, just before that moment. He's sitting in the car trying to figure out, like, I'm gonna go inside,
Mm-hmm.
and he's texting Teddy, right? And when he's texting Teddy, Teddy texts him, he texts him back, and Teddy texts him back, "You're my heart." Like
Mm-hmm.
he says, like, "You're my heart." It says, "You're my,"
Mm-hmm.
and then it's a heart
An
emoji.
emoji. Mm-hmm.
What color was the heart, jokes?
Was it? Oh, damn. Was it purple? Or
No,
was it?
sir. It
No, it
was
was red.
black. It was black. And what was it that was drawn when she wrote out the names that they said was the fourth person from the coven?
The heart was on.
Stay
Oh,
with me. Stay with me. Stay with me, bro. Stay with me.
oh,
He is the actual last member of the coven. It's supposed to be him. He's already a witch. Because Slim he has power. And he knows he has power. And he knows he's a witch. Because he knows that he's Billy Maximoff. So he
yeah,
actually knows it. So like all of what he's doing, like that we've seen him all the way up through these moments, he's like pretending he don't really know what's going on and he
right.
don't really know nothing about witches and he don't know. He knows who his mama is and he knows who he is.
Mm-hmm.
He knows like he he's faking, bruh. Now, does he know that the black heart is supposed to refer to him?
Probably that
No,
part. Probably
but
not.
like
Yeah.
they head faked us, bro, because Rio said oh, it's my black heart. Like, I do have a heart, but it's black. So of course, whole time I'm like, it's real. And then of
Makes
course
sense.
Rio shows up, and I'm like, but now, dog, I'm like, nah, she's not really supposed to be there. She's not actually one of the witches who's supposed to be in this joint. So now I think even more, like we talked about last week. Oh no, Shorty
Uh-huh.
is death.
Death. Yeah.
She's death. Easy, bro. Like, he's the one. Dog, he's supposed to be there whole time. Whole time. So he goes in, breaks into the house. We see the whole thing play out or whatever. Again, I love the way you see how different it is, right?
From his angle, it's gotta pep talk your way through this.
And he's chilling whole time, dog. And when she walks over and kicks him, bruh, the difference between what that kick was like and how hard he hit the floor in the original episode when it happened, and how she kicked him, and it was like that joint barely moved him. Yeah. And then just duct tape my man up, Joe,
Hey, listen, that was
and
the
put him in the
listen,
closet.
that
And
was
then my
the
man said,
funniest.
I don't want to go back in the closet.
That zone killed me.
They doing too much. They doing too much, bruh. He goes through the whole motions of being able to like speak and talk about the spell. And again, like when it happens in the earlier episode, and he starts talking that talk and saying like, I broke you out of the spell, and she's like, oh, you must be pretty powerful to be
Mm-hmm.
able to undo
To do
a
this,
spell that was done by the Scarlet Witch. You know what I mean? Um, yeah, because he got Shorty. Listen, I want to say he has Wanda's DNA, but he doesn't. Like, I don't like.
I don't, I don't know how to. I don't know how you explain it in this like thought DNA. I don't know.
So this is what makes me think. Because again, like the story in the comics is so complicated, right? But like after being retconned multiple times, like
Mm-hmm.
basically the story is that him and Billy were created by Wanda from crystals that came from Mephisto, like that were
Mm-hmm.
parts of Mephisto. So like he doesn't have any. He's not like technically. He's not like. It's weird to be like, oh, he has a power set that's on par with the strength that is,
Mm-hmm.
Wanda, when he doesn't technically have her DNA, right? But in the MCU, dog, we don't really know nothing about her DNA. Like it's just like
She has the power, she has the ability, but like it was an experimentation or something that we never
right. They
got
didn't
that
go back and
answer.
retcon her to making her a mutant or whatever, even though they kind of can now. Nonetheless, let's call it the bloodline. He has the Maximoff bloodline, right? She's saying you're just like your mother, right? So let's call it she was raising him in
Mm-hmm.
some manner after giving birth to him and mysteriously becoming pregnant by a robot. Let's just, I don't know. Let's not, um, we gotta, I guess, forgive some things, man. And once we kind of get through all that, we cut back to being on the road. Um, and them having, I think, just
A real convo at that point. It was
yeah.
after getting them out that mud and
Let's talk about that for a second. Because right now, everybody's dead except the two of
dead.
them and Rio. And we still haven't seen Rio.
Mm-mm.
We don't know where she is. We figured she must be back there dealing with Alice's body, doing her death dizzle. I assume in some manner she is now dealing with the bodies of the other two. And again, this is exactly what she and Agatha talked about in front of all of them, because
Yep.
Agatha hit the button and let them all hear it. You knock them down, I collect the bodies. That's how it's going. You know what I'm saying?
And it looks like, and it honestly, it looks like whether Agatha wanted it to happen or not, it's surely playing out that way.
It is kind of making me wonder what Rio's actual role in this is.
Mhm.
Because when what I thought was interesting, going back to when Billy went to the house to steal something from her, he looks in the window and you see Agatha talking. And for all we know, she's talking to herself. Rio's not
Mhm.
there at all, but they don't show the other seat. You never
Mhm.
see Rio at all. So it makes me wonder whether or not at that point they could even see her. Like, I don't think he could see her. He is in the closet when they have their fight. He don't know what's going on out there. He never sees
Mhm.
her during that time. So he doesn't have an interaction with Rio until she shows up on the road.
Mhm.
Like, if you think about it, he never sees Rio. And so until she shows up on the road, I'm partially convinced that it's possible that Rio was in some manner a manifestation of Agatha's mind. Like, because she's looking and seeing Rio. She's looking at this painting and is supposed to be looking through all and seeing Rio. She's supposed
Mhm.
to be having a conversation in the house with Rio, but you never see her.
On there for it.
Even when he's looking in and you're getting this opportunity to look in on it, you never see her.
So you're on it.
And then, like, when she goes running upstairs to go stop him or whatever, like, Rio just disappears, isn't there. And
Disappears,
then
and
she
that's
just reappears at the end of the episode when Agatha's in the morgue looking for the body that clearly isn't actually real and isn't really there. And then, like, talks her kind of through going through all the different iterations of herself. And it's almost like, again, nobody can see Rio except for Agatha. And Agatha's clearly not at the morgue. Like, she's probably at home,
home.
like
Like,
maybe in her own basement, thinking she's at the morgue and seeing this thing happen where the toe tag is the book thing. And you know what I'm saying? And Wanda's name shows up. So, like, in what way is Rio? What is the reality of Rio in all of
mhm.
this? Because again, it would appear that all the rest of the witches, including Billy, could see Rio when she's there with them during the second and third trials. But now I'm starting to wonder, like, I'm almost feeling like I need to go back and look at it, because there are times when it seems like they might be talking to Rio, but Rio's like always separated from
I was
them.
gonna, yeah. That now that you say that, and it's like, other
Like,
than when Rio first shows up, obviously going through the whole entire thing, and that's when it seems like everybody obviously saw this, Mrs. Hart just turning into a zombie, and maybe
right.
for some reason Mrs. Hart body did do something to actually produce a physical manifestation of Rio at this point. But clearly, like you said, she still is disappearing during those pivotal moments where it's like, I don't. Oh.
Yeah, I mean, when they're sitting at the campfire, Agatha walks, Rio's sitting by herself. The other witches are sitting, like, kind of near each other, talking, having conversations with each other. When Rio starts to talk to and she's just kind of looking, like she's just kind of watching
Mhm.
and listening. If I recall, she doesn't start to talk to them until Agatha shows up. Agatha shows up, sits down next to her, and then she starts to tell this story about, well, I have a story, and does this thing where she kind of calls out that, like, I didn't mean for it to be this way, but it had to be this way, kind of thing. But she's saying it to Agatha, and Agatha kind of like, all right, that's enough, and gets up and walks away. But, like, nobody else really seems to respond to Rio. Like, I'm trying to recall times when anybody has actually responded to something that Rio says other than Agatha. And now that I'm thinking about it, I don't think that happens. Cause like, all right, so there's the moment when they're doing the joint on the Ouija board,
Mm-hmm.
and they ask like, "Who's here?" And the joint spells out
Spells
death,
death.
and like she starts laughing,
Yeah. And no
but
one.
nobody else responds to it, and nobody like responds to her laughing at it. But then Agatha does the thing where she starts pretending to be Mrs. Hart and doing the voice and whatever, and they're looking at her like, "Oh my God, is it really Mrs. Hart?" And then it's Rio that then says to Agatha, like, "Oh, I know she's pretending because she's not really, whatever." And then Agatha stops, but nobody else says anything or responds directly to Rio or whatever. They just look at Agatha and Agatha goes, "All right, my bad," and then just keeps going. But it's not
Right.
like she looks at Rio and is like, "Why you had to dime me out or why you tell or whatever." She just
Yeah. And also thinking about that now when you say that too, when they were all having like the discussion, like obviously Agatha's mom's ghost is in the room, and they're all ready to be like, yeah, we got to punish her, do whatever, kill her, tie her up. And then when she comes to her defense to tell moms, it's like, no, we're not leaving her here. No one, same thing, no one reacted to say that no, this
oh,
has to be done.
right. There are like nobody reacts to her and like says no to her, but they do like react to it and like Alice jumps in. But then like after that, like we don't see Rio anymore. Like that joint ends and that's it. Like I'm trying to figure out whether or not death is really visible to anybody else. Even though I know she's supposed to be the fifth, you know what I
Of
mean, the
course,
replacement witch. It seems like something else might be going on with that.
coming for Agatha. Maybe Agatha's at
And
the end.
again, it seems a little odd to me that Billy, even though all of what's happened kind of happened really fast, isn't like, "Yo, where's Rio?"
Hmm.
Right? Like so concerned about everybody else and just killed the other two witches, just chucked them, threw them in the drink. And so the other thing to discuss is like Agatha's ability to crawl out.
Yeah, I was trying to figure that. Like there was a vine. Like she literally was pulling herself on the vine, but I, I don't know. That was a little
Well, she
sus.
reached out first and then grabbed the
Yeah.
vine and pulled herself the rest of the way out. But I think it's because Agatha can't die.
Mm.
Agatha's immortal, if you remember. Like she can't die. Like Rio, quote unquote, tried to kill her in the beginning of the joint or whatever, and she was like, "You can't do that. It's not allowed." Remember, she told her that, like, "You
Yep.
can't do that. It's not allowed." There's a part of me that is almost thinking that, like, I'm with the whole death thing. There's a part of me that almost feels like maybe Rio is some version of a manifestation of the Darkhold and the rules around that. But like when Wanda, now I gotta go back and watch the end of at least watch the end of WandaVision. When Wanda put the spell on Agatha, she bound her powers. She
Hmm.
like tied her powers so she can't use her powers at all. Which is why I think, and when she did that, she made it so she can't get away from it. It's like if I recall when she put her under the spell, she told her she was under the spell and she wouldn't be able to use her powers, and she said like forever or something
Hmm.
like that. Like she could never like she could never get away from it or something like that, right? And something about the way that she worded it was like, "You're going to be stuck in this joint forever without any powers forever." And so even though she seems to have been broken out of the part of the spell that was like keeping her like in a TV show or whatever, she hasn't been able to break the piece that keeps her from being able to use her magic
Hmm.
because Remember when she stepped out? We talked about it from last episode. She stepped
Mm-hmm.
out, tried to use the magic, and it went away.
Went away.
So she is, in some manner, still bound by the spell that Wanda put on her, even though Wanda is supposed to be dead. And that makes me wonder whether or not there's like a residual version of Wanda that exists in Billy and possibly in Tommy.
Mm-hmm.
Because as she starts to question him about, she basically calls him out like, oh, I don't have any power and I'm not strong and whatever. And like, yeah, whatever. Like, you know who you are. He's like, how'd you figure it out? She's like, I pretty much knew from the beginning. So she kind of like calls him out for faking and pretending that like he don't have no power and he don't have to do any, he don't know how to do anything. And then she talks about like what could it possibly be that you're after?
Mm-hmm.
Somebody who's got the kind of power that you have. It wouldn't be power. They kind of tie things together about him looking for the thing that's missing.
Mm-hmm.
At the end of the road, you'll find what's missing, and that being Tommy, and him being like, I can feel him, but I can't find him. So like knowing that he exists in some way, which again, for all we know, could be something multiversal. The witch's
Mm-hmm.
road could be multiversal for all we know, right? That they're basically in another plane of existence or something like that, which I guess is technically what it is if you think about it. And now it's like, all right, so is he gonna find Tommy at the end of the road? And is there some kind of residual magic that is like when she did that and that happened, did she put parts of herself into them that
Mm-hmm.
make them that residual thing that allows for the spell to continue to work even in her absence?
Mm-hmm.
Because technically, just because of which, like, just because she's dead doesn't mean the spell is inactive. That's clearly not
Right.
how it works. She was still, now it might have weakened it some or whatever. But again, the question is, where did Rio come in? Then is she actually showing up in this thing? Like, I need some answers still,
Gotta get next week.
right? Yeah, because she told my man, like, look, you might as well. He said, dog, I don't need you to finish the road.
And I was like,
She talked my man down though, like, hold on, Slim. Look, don't you dare feel bad about your powers. Don't you dare feel bad. Killing ain't that hard. I done killed some joints. She was like, yo, I
my
done
fair
killed some
share.
joints. But here's the thing. Does she have some sort of a symbiotic relationship with death? And has she basically just been killing people and feeding death bodies for like centuries, bro?
That's what I could definitely go along, because the thing is, the same way death probably couldn't necessarily do this with anybody, because let's say whoever lives for 60, 70 years, but it's like, I need someone that can be in this the whole entire time, that if I can get the trust from, that can last a whole eternity essentially. And Agatha, if like how you said, is immortal, that's going to be your perfect alignment to it.
I mean, it is, I guess. Yeah, I don't know. Don't listen. I can make stuff up and guess at stuff all night because I can't. You know what I mean? There's a lot of threads to pull. Um, I really like this episode, bro.
I am right there with you.
I'm very much in a place where like what they're doing right now is exactly what they need to be doing. It is exactly the kind of feed that I feel like the MCU needs. And so right now I'm at a solid 8 for the theories currently. You said you agree with that?
I agree with that. Like right now, with the way the information that we got, still got a couple of tidbits that are out there, but it's going in the right direction. And if they
Yeah.
can land these last couple episodes as a whole season could make it to a 9. But
Are you right?
it's just a matter of the next episode and then sticking the landing with the final 2 on the last night. But right now, this is setting up to have a really good score And
Yeah,
I'm
my anticipation for what I think is gonna happen. I think next episode we're gonna get an explanation of Rio and
mhm,
what's really going on with Rio, what her role is. Could even possibly be some more flashback. I know we don't really like for there to be a lot of flashback in it, but clearly there's a relationship that is there
mhm,
that they need to establish some background for. And so I'm not positive that you can really take care of the need for that without doing some version of a flashback, without there
mhm.
being some level of it. Like right now, it's really crazy to me that Billy isn't even questioning where's Rio. Right? Like Slim's just like, he said I can finish the role by myself, as if there was never another person.
Mhm.
Right? It was him and Agatha and the other two that he got rid of, including her. Like, got rid of her too, had them get rid of her, didn't allow her to take his power, like knows that Agatha tried to steal his mother's power and purposefully like didn't hit her with his power. Maybe doesn't realize that even if he does that, she can't keep it. But
Mhm.
maybe if that same power, like if a power that comes from that same person was to hit her, maybe that would undo the spell or something. Like who knows? They could kind of
Right.
plot armor their way out of that. But right now, I think that right there is the witness protection for me right now. Is who is Rio? What is her actual role? What is their background? Is she even really there? Because
Mhm.
he's not acting like Rio's really there. As far as I can tell, for the most part, it seems like he's never seen Rio. Now I'm
Mhm.
like, I gotta go back and watch the other episodes and just kind of dig through it because I feel like she responds to stuff that they say, but I feel like nobody ever responds to her. And it's like super subtle. You just don't
You don't think about
really
it.
get anything. Like, I feel like she shows up and she introduces herself. Does anybody introduce themselves back to her? Oh, well, she kind of shows up.
They didn't really introduce her a
Oh,
lot.
but then, all right, but there has to be, because no, because at least when they fly on the brooms, somebody does the spell with her. They have to, because that's the only
Yep.
way for them to be able to fly on the brooms.
It's either that or somehow what we are seeing of Rio is not what the
What
rest of
everybody
them.
else is saying.
And maybe Agatha is the only one that's actually seeing Rio for who she
Rio.
actually is. And everybody else is seeing, and I would imagine certain things would be said that, but maybe with something going on, it's preventing the same way that Billy couldn't necessarily say who he was. There's like a subtle, I don't know. It just seems like for some reason I don't think they're seeing Rio. I think they're seeing something else or someone else, but it's just not, for whatever reason, it's not serious enough where they have to think that they have to worry about it. I'm not sure.
The other thing that's kind of strange to me, and I feel like maybe happens out of order, is they show like how to like end the sigil or whatever. They say like it can be broken by like a breakable sigil or something like that, and
Mm-hmm.
he's like he can and he breaks it.
Mm-hmm.
But at that point, she's already able to hear and understand him. Like so, the the spell itself doesn't seem to be necessary as far as the sigil is concerned in terms of protecting him
Mm-hmm.
from other witches or whatever it is. But he does break it, and I don't quite understand what the symbolism of that is
What does it say?
because he
When it's
was
not needed anymore. That was, I think that was the thing I was saying. When it's not needed anymore, it would be able to be
no.
undone.
I think it says it comes undone when it's not needed anymore, but him being able to break it wasn't, I don't think, specifically tied to it not being needed anymore. Like it almost seems like he could have broke it at any time
No.
with the right thing. Like he possibly could have broken it. Like I think that he was aware that he was under the sigil, because he was studying it. Like, remember, he had the pictures of it and all that. And he
Mm-hmm.
was like, sigil and like how it can be broken and whatever. So it seems like he knew. They said that a sigil is broken or ends when it's no longer necessary or whatever. But we don't know what the reason for the sigil was.
Mm-hmm.
We know that she did it, and we know that she put it on him. The thing about it is, it's interesting to me why and how that would work, because technically she put the sigil on William Kaplan, and William
Mm-hmm.
Kaplan died, and then Billy showed up. So the idea that that sigil, I don't think, I think he redid the sigil himself.
And
I
maybe
think
that
that
would
he was studying the sigil, and I think the sigil was there, and she put it on William. But when he died, it
that
wasn't any
broke.
good anymore. And I think that in order to protect himself, because he
He
was
had to
going in and trying
create
to
it.
pretend that he didn't know who he was. And so, because they show him say, like they show him, like I think he did it himself, because she asked him what his name is, and he says William Kaplan,
Oh, and you
and
know
then
what?
she
He's looking
says
at
say again, and he says Billy
Billy
Maximoff,
Maximoff.
and she still couldn't understand it. So that tells me right there that he knows
It's
who
double.
he is,
Mm-hmm.
and she and he, by saying the first name when she couldn't hear what he said, he did it again, and now he knows, oh yeah, the sigil works. She can't figure out who I am. She
Mm-hmm.
can't figure out my back history. She can't hear any of that information. I think he put the sigil on himself, and that's why he was studying it. He did it to himself. The first joint didn't work. Or somehow he knows that the sigil or the symbol was written down and given to him or placed with him so that he would be able to do it or figure it out to protect himself later on.
Yeah.
I actually don't think, again, she wouldn't recognize him anyway, because if she did it and that sigil was for Kaplan, we'll call him, she still wouldn't recognize him when she saw him again, because for her,
That'd
that
be
it was a
interesting.
wrap.
That'd be
But if it
interesting.
was already broken, so it is possible that she did it for William Kaplan, and then he did it again for Billy Maximoff. Like, he studied it to learn how to reproduce it to protect himself. And so when he said William Kaplan, she couldn't hear him, and he realized that, and he tested his own that he did on himself
Mm-hmm.
when he said Billy Maximoff. So the one that she did was still working, and the one that he did is now working, and there are two sigils, or there were, and he just broke one of them.
One of them.
I like this show, dog.
I like.
I like
Yeah.
this joint.
Yeah.
Like, that's where I'm at right now. That he recreated the sigil. Yeah,
Yep.
that's where
Yep.
that's where I think we are right now. Yeah, I'm at an 8 for this joint right now. Like, it's
Mm-hmm.
it's right there. It's right there. And if they can keep on this trajectory, yeah, you're right. This
Mm-hmm.
could easily be a 9. I'd be very surprised if it makes it to 10 territory, but it could easily be a 9. They do this right. So I think we can wrap this one up, right, Jokes?
I'm good with it.
Cool. So I want you all to know that we will continue to do this. This is your episode 5 spoiler boys for Agatha all along. I'm sorry, episode 6 spoiler boys for Agatha all along. We're really looking forward to seeing episode 7 and coming back and talking with y'all about it here. We're out. Tools and Loops.
Loading snacks.